You're listening to the Business Wealth Impact Podcast, your source for empowering information and cutting-edge ideas from the world's top minds. I'm your host, Jeanne Amlour, founder of seven-figure coaching company, Jeanne Amlour International. Join me on a journey to unleash your potential and create your highest success. Welcome to Business Wealth Impact. Hello, and welcome to another wonderful episode of the podcast. Today, we have a very interesting guest, Terry Cutler, who's a renowned cybersecurity expert and ethical hacker, known for his expertise in network security and internet safety. As the CEO of Cyology Labs, he provides advanced cybersecurity training and consultation. Terry's also a media commentator and author, widely recognized for his industry contributions. Welcome, Terry.
How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm amazing. And thank you for coming in. I have so many questions I want to ask you, and I know you're going to provide them to me. So,
Go for it.
okay. First of all, Terry, I think it would be really interesting because I'm fascinated. How did you get into cybersecurity?
Okay, so I've always been passionate about computers since the age of 10, and got my first IT job back in the early 90s. And back then, I started getting into obviously IT networking, things like that. I dropped out of school in college, so I went to a specialized school that only taught me about networking. At the time, it was a software called Novell. So those of you on the podcast that are my age, you'll definitely know this software vendor. So I learned about software and about Novell. And in 2004-ish, I started getting inspired by watching shows like CSI and 24. Remember Jack Bauer? And I was like, how does Chloe O'Brien breaking all these systems so fast? And that's when there was a course called the Certified Ethical Hacker, where they teach you the same techniques that the bad guys use to break into systems, except you're using these skills for good. So I begged and pleaded my boss to send me to Washington, where I had the opportunity to train with the FBI, the CIA, the Navy SEALs that were students in my class as well. So armed with this knowledge of how these hackers are breaking these systems, I felt it was my duty to share this with the general public on how to keep safe online. So I educate business owners. I teach at schools, internet safety for kids. So I teach at all levels. I currently had a situation where obviously my name was circulating around a lot. So I started doing media appearances. Like every time there's a data breach that occurs, how do the hackers do this? How could they have prevented themselves from getting their Facebook accounts hacked? All these various topics. But I started getting a problem where I couldn't be in 50 places at once. So with that knowledge, I created a digital product called Internet Safety University. So today has over 39,000 students in it from 150 countries. And obviously from educating all these folks and still my awareness training and my blogs and my videos, all these things, there's an organization out of the UK called IFSEC Global. They kind of certify the who's who in the world in fire safety and cybersecurity. So in 2018, they named me number one most influential person in cybersecurity worldwide, which I found interesting because I can't even influence my kids to come to the table without an iPad. Right? But they named me number one, and then I won it again in 2019 and again in 2020. So I started winning all these other industry awards as well. And yeah, so today I try to always find ways to add more value to my audience. And recently I launched a mobile app called Fraudster. So it's available for both Apple and Android. You can download it for free. And what the goal here is to educate you on the latest scams and frauds to watch out for.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. It's interesting how
I haven't slept in 10 years.
You haven't slept in? So it's interesting how, our success in the world sometimes isn't, boiled down into the dinner table with our kids, right? I totally get that.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, so you are using these tools for good and not evil, right?
That's right.
That's wonderful. You're like one of the Avengers. So I'd like to hear, because I'm always interested in safety and all of that. Things have changed. So what do people need to know now about cybersecurity going into 2024?
That there is no stopping cybercrime. It's going to get worse because, as you're noticing, there's a lot of layoffs happening in the industry. Companies are laying off folks from their IT department and such, and there's a lot of, we'll say, hostility, where disgruntled employees are coming back to hack the company, or they're leaking personal sensitive information to cyber criminals in order for them to hack the business. So we're seeing a lot of issues, especially around businesses where they don't have enough time, money, or resources to deal with cybersecurity, right? And they don't
Mm,
have proper technology in place to know there's a hacker in there. So the average hacker is in your system for 286 days. That's the average right now.
that's crazy.
And most of the time when these guys are being detected is because they made an error. Something
Mm,
they did something they weren't supposed to, and it popped an error somewhere that the IT
mm,
guy spotted it. Like, oh my god, there's something in here, and that's
mm,
how they got caught usually. So these companies need to start investing into detection technology to know there's a hacker in there,
right,
and you better have a proper response plan in place to get the hacker out once he's been detected. And a lot of companies don't have that in place.
right. So they're just sort of sitting ducks.
They're absolutely seeing ducks. Yeah,
Because I feel
yeah.
like with
Because what's happening is
cybersecurity,
like,
yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I feel like with cybersecurity, we're just sort of waiting for bad stuff to happen, right? And
Yeah,
that's not a good way to be because then it's causing anxiety. It's like, oh, when am I going to be hacked? So, um, what are some ways where any company, whether they're small or big, and you're talking about big companies that have IT, people. What about everyday solopreneurs, apart from the larger companies? What can they do to safeguard their data and not be hacked or see if there is somebody in there? Is there any way of doing that so it's
yep,
not just waiting for disaster to happen?
yeah. So again, it's not a question of if, but when.
Right.
And we work with companies of all sizes. Our smallest client has 2 employees,
Wow.
and our largest has 1,100 and something in it. And but they're all facing the same issues. They're all receiving phishing emails. They're all receiving malicious software, things like this. So let's start from the bottom up. The first thing you need to do is make sure your computer software is up to date. Make sure
Mm.
your Windows updates are fully patched. If you have a Mac, make sure it's fully up to date as well. And that's one of the comments I always get is like, oh, well, if I have a Mac, I'm safe, right?
No.
Macs don't get hacked, but Macs do get hacked and do get ransomed. And I'll talk
Hmm.
about ransomware in a little bit. But they need to make sure that their operating system is up to date.
Hmm.
Then we got to start looking at their antivirus solution. What are they using? Are they using the free antivirus? And if so, why? Right? They're missing
Right.
out on so many opportunities for the more advanced stuff in the paid version.
Mm.
Um, and the free stuff is not going to cut it today. It will not stop the latest
Oh,
threats.
I totally agree. I was hacked and I had all sorts of stuff, and I ended up getting Bitdefender because that's supposed to be really good. Okay. So basically, so far, folks pay for it because the free stuff ain't going to cut it. And even when you pay, it's still not a complete safeguard. Number two, make sure all systems are updated. Now, I'm very guilty of that. I will leave systems not updated. So I just made a reminder. Thank you for that. And then what else can people do?
Then we're going to start looking at the third one, which is one of the most important ones, is around passwords. So many people create such lousy, crappy passwords, like a John123, right?
Right.
And that's a really lousy password.
Mm,
So what they need to do is start creating passwords that have a combination of uppercase, lowercase, and symbols in their password.
right.
So if you can think of um, song lyrics or phrases, this is going to help you.
Hmm.
And you want to have a minimum of 16 to 25 characters long, right? Like,
Wow.
I know what you're thinking. Is this guy nuts? Like, how you going to remember a password this long?
Right.
But again, if you think of song lyrics and phrases, it's going to help you. So let's take a
Hmm.
simple phrase. I had a great day at work, 2024, exclamation point, right? Very simple phrase.
Right.
But if you remove the spacing, capitalize each letter of the word,
Hmm.
that password alone will take 10 years to break.
Wow.
But since we're here to up our game on this podcast,
Hmm.
we're going to, if you replace the O's with a zero, the A's
Hmm.
with an at symbol, that password will now take 39 centuries to crack.
So
But
you're basically saying we should work harder on the passwords because that's the first defense, right?
absolutely. Yeah. So
Okay.
there's actually two more steps now. The
Okay.
next one is to turn on what's called two-step verification. This is
Right.
the most important part
Hmm.
because a lot of passwords leak onto the dark web, right?
Hmm.
The criminal underbelly of the internet.
Hmm.
And a lot of people are victims of phishing attacks where they think they're logging into their account, but they're logging
Hmm.
into a hacker's website, and they can actually see you
Yes.
typing in the password, and they start
Hmm.
reusing it, logging in all your accounts, and lock you out.
Right.
So you need to make sure you have two-step verification turned on. This is where you're gonna enroll your cell phone into the service. So every service has its Gmail, Amazon, PayPal, your phone provider.
Hmm.
Everybody has this capability.
Hmm.
So this way, you have to type in your username, password, and a two-step verification code of 6 digits. Either it comes to your phone or it's on your app, authenticator app. So you need all three of these for this to work.
Hmm.
But there's one more piece of the puzzle here. and
Mm-hmm.
this came up as of 3 years ago. I had a guest on my show who was a victim of the port out scam. So what
Mm,
happened here was she had two-step verification turned on all of her accounts except for one, her
mm,
Hotmail. And she's like, "Why
mm,
am I going to secure this account? It's all junk mail going in here."
mm-hmm.
And they hacked into her account. And what happened there was they saw all the security questions and all the answers.
Mm.
And what they did was they were able to log into her phone provider and transfer it to another phone provider. And
Wow.
when they did that, all of her two-step verification codes went along with it. So they were able to log into her bank account and drain it. They
Oh,
bought stuff on Amazon and PayPal.
no way.
Sorry, Amazon and eBay. Yeah, so
Mm-hmm.
it was a mess. They did this on a Friday night
Mm-hmm.
during COVID. So
Wow.
so the listeners need to call up their phone provider and
Mm-hmm.
activate what's called port protection.
Mm-hmm.
So what this means is that if you decide to switch to another carrier, you have to show up in person with identification in order to do this.
Mm.
If you make it too simple, the cyber criminals can do that on your behalf as
Right.
well.
Wow. That is some good stuff there. I am very guilty. I think on one of my Yahoos, I never did two steps. I thought, oh, I never used that. So thank you for that. So this is amazing stuff. So first of all, we want to find a password that they cannot hack. And that is a phrase from, it could be the name of a book. It could be the name of, first lyric of a song. And you're saying, because I do this, I do um, capital, then lowercase, like it's a 5-letter thing that's not really a word. Okay. And then I do 7 different symbols. Some of them are the same in succession, and then I keep adding them on. If we need to change them, I'll just use the same one and add.
Yep.
But you're saying we should have at least 16 characters.
Yeah, and I'll tell you why. So those of you that create strong passwords, when a
Hmm.
hacker breaks into a server,
Hmm.
okay, he's going to see, let's say, username Jean,
Hmm.
and all of a sudden you're going to see all this gibberish
Mm.
next to this user account. That's
Hmm.
actually your password in an encrypted form.
Oh.
But we can do an attack called pass the hash. Now, just
Mm.
to confirm, okay, I'm not talking about the good old college days here. Okay,
Hmm.
this is actually an attack where I can log in as you without ever knowing what your password is.
Right.
So that's what's happening right now. It happened to the Canada Revenue Agency a couple of years ago here, where 100,000 accounts got locked out because they were
Wow.
reusing all these passwords
Right.
and took over people's accounts.
Wow. I was hacked, and I saw that my account on Facebook was changed. And I thought, we didn't
Mhm.
change that. And sure enough, they got into my ads account and used my credit cards, and we couldn't even get back in. It was some crypto people. Um,
Yep.
so that was a disaster. And of course, we changed every single password to everything that was opened on my
Uh, uh,
computer
yeah. And how long did it take you
immediately.
to get back up and running?
Sorry? Uh, we were, well, I mean, I lost that ads account. So I immediately canceled both credit cards, changed all the passwords for everything that was logged on. And then my bank account was hacked into. Wasn't as bad though, phew. But we just activated and did this all and changed everything within the same day. We just went through everything and
Mhm.
made everything 2-step, except I didn't do that for one of my email accounts. There you
And how
go.
many years off your life did that take?
Oh, it was so stressful. And we never got that Facebook ads account back. It was banned for, no, we got the Facebook ads account back, but we couldn't get my Instagram ads. Remember, we met that way. And I said, how do I
That's
get
right.
this? We had to use another Instagram account, and that they were trying, and Instagram tries to get it back, but they're so bad,
And it
but
affects your brand too.
it was very stressful. Um,
Hmm.
and of course I had to go back to the credit cards. It was like they used up like 40K in ads.
Yep.
Super stressful. Yeah.
Yep. And it
Very
affects your
stressful.
brand, your personal brand as well, right? They're like, ruins your
Oh, it does,
reputation a little
because
bit.
then you got these crypto hackers acting like they're me, spamming people. Not good. But
Yep.
that we had two-step verification in there too. So
Hmm.
they went in and hacked the password and changed it and then locked us out. So I don't know how we could have avoided that one actually, because I guess we could have had a better password, but they might have done what you did. So it was just, what do you do, right?
Yep.
We
Well,
did
that
we
that's part
had
of the
two-step.
extortion piece, right? There's a lot of online extortion happening right now.
Mm,
And there's also another form of extortion for businesses called ransomware.
mhm,
So if you've never heard of ransomware, this is where, like, imagine you're the CEO of a company, right? You
mhm,
walk in one day and all of your data is held up, it's
mhm,
encrypted and completely unusable. Your employees can't work, they're still
mhm,
being paid,
mhm.
and now you're being extorted to get your data back. And
Right.
now the average cost is around $1 million to get your data back,
That's
and then you have to start
horrible.
negotiating downwards.
Wow.
And yeah, it's either you pay the bill or possibly lose your business. because unless you got proper backups happening right now,
Mhm.
you'll not get that data back. It's completely unusable.
But the
Can't get it
problem
back.
with that is sometimes they just keep asking for money, right?
Yep.
So once you have that happen, you're just basically they own you unless you get somebody
Yep.
else to get the data and back it up, right? So horrible stuff going on. And I literally every single person I know has had some kind of data breach and lost money.
hmm
So yeah, I was very lucky that I think we got most of it back. But that's a really good one about I have pretty long passwords and lots of different symbols. But if they don't even need to break the password, then what do you do, right? So,
That's a two-step verification piece. That's
well,
the
I
piece you need
use
to
that.
have on there.
Right, right. We do that for everything except for one. I'm going to go do that today. I'm like, oh no, because I like being. We can't like with insurance. You can't. It's like insurance. You can only insure yourself so much, and there's some people that like really. But at some point, you just have to let things go and say, well, whatever happens, happens. We've done what we can, right?
Yep.
And not let yourself be anxious because you can't live like that, right?
Well,
But
I'll share a
these,
story with you after.
sure.
Go ahead.
No, but these are very simple things that anybody can do. So I'm really thank you for that. That's helpful. So what were you going to share with me?
So a friend of mine also runs a business. He was frauded $445,000.
Hmm.
So what happened was he received an email. It looked like it came from the marketing department of the bank.
Hmm.
So he goes and clicks on the link he wasn't supposed to and ends up at
Hmm.
bank.ru. So it's like
Hmm.
a Russian website, but it looks identical to his existing banking account,
Wow.
banking login.
Hmm.
So he goes and types in his client card number, the password, and a two-step verification on
Oh.
his fob.
Hmm.
At that point, when he as soon as he hits submit, he gives that information in real time, in real
Hmm.
like clear text to the
Hmm.
hackers, who then logs into his real bank, and now he's got access to the account. Now the
Wow.
token is deactivated for 15 minutes, which means you can't reuse this number for 15 minutes
Right.
until resets. But during
Hmm.
that time, the cyber criminals are in his account, and
Mm.
that they had time to create a wire transfer to Mexico.
Oh my
And
goodness.
so when that happened, the obviously it went through, but there's a lot of stuff where the bank is at fault here because he's never done a wire transfer that much in his
Hmm.
life. So the
Hmm.
bank should have called him and say, "Are you sure is this the right
Hmm.
amount? Did you put an extra zero here?"
Hmm.
Because when we're in court, we're like, "Okay, Mr. Judge, I can get an alert on my credit card for $100 fraud, and
Yes.
he doesn't get an alert for almost $500,000 bucks."
Right.
And
Did he win?
we ended up winning half half because he was
Mm.
part of a phishing attack. It's his fault for clicking on a link, not verifying. He doesn't have the
Hmm.
proper awareness training, but
Hmm.
it's also the bank's fault because they didn't have the proper security in place. Like if he sees he's logging in from Montreal all the time and now he's logging in from Nigeria,
Hmm.
that should have been a red flag on the bank.
No,
So
that's
I mean, does
true.
he see a different device?
Actually, a client of mine, he said he gets notifications every time he spends $100. Somebody stole his debit card in
Mhm.
Vegas and used $17,000 in one night, and they didn't even say, "Hey, what about this?" Why is it so inconsistent?
So
It's
one of the
it's.
things you need to do too is that if you're a business owner,
Hmm.
if you never do large wire transfers,
Hmm.
make sure you go and sit down with your account manager and see what is your transfer limit.
Mm.
Because a lot of times they set it so high for convenience purposes.
Hmm.
So this way, if you did a wire transfer for $500,000 bucks, you don't
Hmm.
need to call the bank. The bank's not going to call you.
Right,
It's like it's
right, right.
pre-authorized, and that's what happened in this guy's case. It was pre-authorized for $500,000
Oh,
when his largest transfer is like 20,000.
wow.
So that should never have been set that high. So it should have been much lower. So this
Okay,
way,
so we can do that by making it very small and having to call them and
correct,
unlock it when we want to do a transfer.
exactly, or
Got
show
it.
up in
Okay.
branch.
So that's a way where they cannot drain your bank account.
Correct.
That's a
Yeah.
really good one too, that even
Yeah.
if they get in there, they have to, it's going to be like, nope, sorry. But then people could make it like 1,000 and just make it that they have to call and unlock it every time.
Yep. Because
Ah,
all over the bank's website, it says if you're a victim of a phishing attack, you're on your own, buddy.
mm.
We're not
I
being
have something
responsible.
called LifeLock.
Yep.
Does that helps, right?
Well, that's for identity theft protection.
Right.
So if your passwords or your social insurance number ends up on the dark web, they find it. So we
Yeah,
have a similar
yeah.
service.
Yeah, it's good. At least that's something that they'll say, "Hey, wait a minute." Um, one of my passwords was on the dark web, so I changed everything with that password. Um,
Mhm.
but it was a very bad password. Let's face it. And I used it for everything else. The other thing is this. The other thing is, LastPass.
Yep.
that can be hacked, right?
Yeah, they had a situation recently.
Well, I always worried about that. So I actually write my passwords on a piece of paper.
Yeah,
My
it's
passwords are not stored anywhere, except there's probably one little doc somewhere that's hard to find. But I change them so much that I actually have them on a piece of paper. Is that a smart thing to do?
it's a catch-22. Okay,
Why?
so I always hear this question. Well, if I have a password manager, am I good to go?
Mm,
And my worry with the password manager is that it creates really unbreakable passwords. Like it could be 40 characters long, with like
mhm,
just symbols, uppercase,
mm.
lowercase. The problem here is that I had a customer call up at the middle of last year. His LastPass master key was stolen, and
Wow.
he came to me and he's like, "I have 900 passwords that I can't get access to.
Wow.
Can you help me?" I'm like, no,
Oh,
I wouldn't
no.
even know where to begin with you on this.
Mm.
So because a lot of these services are saying, okay, what's the last password you remember?
But we don't. I don't
There's
remember
no
that.
way you're
No way.
done. So that's why I always go back to the whole, song lyrics phrases thing, because the average person has about 50 passwords rolling around in their head.
Mhm,
Everything from the alarm code to your
mhm,
house, your PIN code,
mhm.
online passwords, all these things. So when you use the phrases idea, you can limit your passwords down now to 5.
Oh, because
And
you're just gonna use 5 phrases and you use different symbols at the end?
yes, but if you
Got it.
have, but the key here is that two-step verification and the port out protection.
Mm.
So once you have those in place, it's going to be really difficult for the scammer to get
And then you
access
were
to your stuff.
saying to replace all O's with zeros, and then what was the other thing to replace? The
A's with that symbol.
Got it. Okay, so then it's not even that's even harder. Yeah.
Correct.
No, and also I have them all on a piece of paper. And
Well, that's the problem. If your
every time I
house
have a
burns
new one, I
down,
get a new post-it and stick it on that paper. So I
yeah,
felt like, and I really did not trust LastPass. I thought there's no way I'm using this because they could hack it. I had a
yeah.
feeling about that, and I'm so glad I didn't because I was hacked. This is really valuable information. Okay, so what is a new thing? I've heard something called deep fake, and I
Yeah.
was that goes very far. Apparently, in like South Korea, they have people that can use AI to leave a voice message sounding like your daughter, and even they have video. But wouldn't you know that that video is AI? So, what's coming up with deep fake? Because that's like a new thing, right?
It's ironic you just mentioned that. I literally posted something about 30 minutes before our call, and it was the power of AI, how it can be used against you. So
Right.
in the video, it showed the parents of this young girl were sharing memories online, pictures of her.
Hmm.
So in this example, in this project, they took the young child's face
Hmm.
and they aged her by 10 years.
Wow.
And what they did was they showed how she can get scammed in the
Hmm.
future, how maybe she could be a victim of a crime she never committed.
Hmm.
They can use her voice to scam the parents.
Hmm.
Some of the stuff right now is getting really crazy.
Right.
Um, the whole artificial intelligence world is really
That's going to
interesting.
make it much harder, much,
Absolutely,
much harder. Yeah.
yeah,
So you have to be so careful that if somebody leaves you a voice message, you have to call them back and say, "Did you call me just now?" Right?
yeah.
But
It's really
it's
interesting
scary
too,
stuff,
because there's even the bank, right? There's the whole bank voice verification.
right?
So if you call in and say, "Hey, it's Terry. We're doing this. This is me,"
Hmm.
but now the AI has a recording of my voice. What's
Mm,
them to use my tone and pitch to call the
mm,
bank and pass that voice verification as well?
right. So this is scary stuff. So they're just like out to get all of us and to
Oh yeah.
pull as much. Basically, it's one big. Let's just try to empty everybody's bank accounts.
Well, it's like, look, I mean, the this technology is there to help improve our life, right?
Hmm.
But at the same time, the cyber criminals can use this for nefarious purposes. Because
Of
remember, these
course.
guys are racking trillions of dollars a year in cybercrime. There's just
Wow.
one ransomware group that brought in close to $90 million in 3 months,
How do you know those numbers?
because they're published, and they show who's a victim of that crime
Oh,
and
and
by
people
what
are
group, and they,
reporting
they
what they've
tally.
lost. And it's
Correct.
the same. We know it's the same group.
Correct.
Oh, wow. So why get a job when you could just steal stuff, right?
Yeah.
No, I
I
can
need to
see why.
retire
I guess
soon.
Nigeria is going to be the richest country in the world, right? Because it
Well,
seems
it's
like
very
a
hard to
lot of
find
these
these
come
days.
from Nigeria and also Russia, right?
Well, and that's a challenge too, is because using VPNs, it allows us to hide our tracks online.
Mm-hmm.
and so you never really know where they're coming from. Plus,
Uh,
they're being tunneled through 9 or 10 other servers
right.
that don't have any traces on them. So you
Mm,
can't really. I could be sitting in Canada and scamming you in the U.S. You
right.
know,
Or you could
but make
be
it look like I'm
next
in Russia.
door scamming me in Florida,
Correct.
wherever we are.
Yeah.
Wow. So this is pretty scary stuff, but I'm glad you gave me those tips because there were a few things I thought, well, I haven't done that. So what are the best security VPNs? I was told to get Bitdefender for anybody that has any crypto at all, logins or wherever, anything. Is that a good one?
I don't often use that one. I use mostly NordVPN, NORD
Yeah, I've
VPN.
heard that. Yeah.
Um, so those are usually my favorites. But if you're a business and you need to start protecting your company against VPNs and such, because sometimes your employees are going to want to watch. Let's say they're checking their emails, but now they turn on a VPN. So now
Mm,
instead of logging in from Florida, they're logging in from Nigeria. So
mm,
is it really them, or are they just watching Nigerian Netflix? Or
right.
we don't know what they're
Right.
doing. But there's some checks that happens when an employee is trying to access resources at the company that
Of
say, hey, this
course.
is the same device ID, it's the same username and password. It's probably the same person, but on a VPN. But let's
Mhm.
send you an alert anyway to make sure it's really you.
Right, right. Yeah. Oh, wow. Okay, well, thanks for sharing all that. So, do you have any other parting tips for people?
Yeah, a lot of questions I always get is that, Terry, there's so much stuff happening right now. How on earth you want me to keep up with this?
Yeah.
So we launched, like I mentioned earlier, I mentioned the Fraudster app.
Mm,
So it's a free download. They can get it from the App Store. They can look at search for Terry Cutler, Psyology, or Fraudster,
mhm,
and from there, I'll be able to push notify either a business owner or the consumer, whichever option they chose,
mhm,
about the latest scam and fraud to watch out for.
mm. That's good. Right. Of course, we've got all this stuff going on, and there's so much going on in the world, like wars and stuff like that, that I think I think sometimes they'd rather just be in a little bit of denial about certain things, right? Because so much could happen. But we've got to take some safeguards so that we think, okay, I've done what I can and, you know, leave it at that, right? It's like
Yep.
getting in a car. You may or may not have an accident, but you're going to take certain precautions, and then you're going to drive anyway, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I said, there's no silver bullet to stop the hacker from getting in.
Mm,
But, a lot of people are going to be victims of phishing attacks. So when
mm,
these wars are happening, or if there's
mm,
a cause that's well known, you're going to start receiving emails saying,
mm,
hey, support, send donations for the war, whatever
hmm.
it is. But a lot of times they're phishing attacks.
Right.
And when they click on that link they're not supposed to, their computers can get infected, or they could be typing in information they're not supposed to, and it
Hmm.
gets used against them in an attack.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Well, this has been sobering. I knew it wouldn't be fun, but I did learn a lot because
There's
I think
hope.
we all just kind of I don't want to like think it's not going to happen to us, and then it does because it has happened to me. I've been hacked several times.
Yeah.
Um, luckily, it hasn't been an entire hack, but
Well, you'd be a
actually,
perfect question for this because at first, like, you've heard about these things happening in the years
mm,
before. Oh yeah,
hmm,
make sure you have all these strong
hmm,
passwords. Make sure you have two-step
hmm.
verification. But a lot of times you're like, this will never happen to me.
Oh no, I
But
know it will
now you're
happen.
an advocate of it.
No, I mean, I've been hacked before, but luckily it wasn't. I've had a lot of phishing attacks, and I'm very careful when I get an email, I look at the email address. I don't believe that, whatever sent it. I go, oh, that's not a normal address from LinkedIn or from PayPal. So I'm pretty careful now. I actually think, this doesn't look right. And I'll click and I'll go, oh, well, that's not the LinkedIn. You have to look at the address because
Yep.
if it's not like the LinkedIn normal address you're getting it from or the PayPal normal address, it's a hacker. It's a phisher. So when
Well, I'll
that
tell you
happens,
what's
when that happens, I change my email password again every time that happens. But no, I mean, I know this happens and I'm not somebody that has their head in the sand about anything in life, to be honest. I'm proactive. So I'm going to go away and do everything you said, um, and I'm actually going to use your thing. I'm going to change all of them to longer because I didn't know about that. I thought mine were pretty complex, but not as complex
yep.
as yours. And so many, I think some of mine probably have about 15 characters already, some of them, but I got to be
Great stuff.
categorical. So sorry, what were you going to say? You had a little extra
Well,
nugget to share with
yeah.
us.
So a lot of times, what's happening right now is that legitimate companies are getting hacked into
Hmm.
right now because they don't have the time, money, or resources to deal with cybersecurity.
Right,
That's why a lot of companies come to us to outsource that job. So we
right.
work with your IT department, help them with that piece. But so the small company is getting hacked, and they're using him as a jump point to attack another company. So you might receive an email, looks like it came from, Joe's Garage, who you might be using.
Right.
And because it's a legitimate domain, legitimate email, it came from his system, but the hackers have control of it and sent you an email that had a phishing attack in it. So that's how they're bypassing this stuff.
They're sort of like hop, skipping, and jumping.
Correct.
Now, we noticed that my Facebook account password changed. We didn't change it. We were like, wait a minute, how did that change? So we went and changed it again today. And I know somebody was in there again because we were like, no, we know the date when we changed it. I thought we didn't change it and we couldn't get in. I thought, oh, wait a minute, that's happened again. So I'm going to go change it again to a longer one. But as you said, I mean, once they found it, they're probably in there trying to get back in after that attack.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But the other thing is you're better off using an American Express credit card because you have more chance of getting that money back, right?
Correct, absolutely.
Because I wasn't using American Express and I changed my ads to use an American Express card because they're just like, they take care of it better than other credit cards. Would you agree?
I do. Yep.
Yeah.
So that's why I always use a credit card. Don't use your debit card, your online debit credit card. Sorry,
your
online debit card. Yeah, you want to use a credit card. So this way you can get the money back.
Because that's direct access to your actual bank account. Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, of course, in the show notes, everybody, there's going to be all the links to anything that you want to discover about Terry. So Terry, thank you for joining us and thank you for listening, everybody. And personally, I'm going to go and do a few little tasks right now. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, not at all. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much. And we'll see you on the next episode, everybody. Bye. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Business Wealth Impact. I hope you found today's conversation insightful and life-changing. If you want to support the show and stay up to date with all of our latest episodes, the easiest way to do that is by following us on your favorite podcast platform. Just hit that follow button to never miss an episode. And if you really love the show and want to help us spread the word, leave us a review and share the podcast with your friends. Again, be sure to subscribe, and until next time, be impactful.